let's take a look in that shack.
Faster, Velma! Faster! Zoinks, we're goners! Zoinks! Now you really got a man!
Everywhere you look, you see a new game coming out, whether if it's a new IP, a sequel, a reboot, or a remake. You see these female characters being put to the slaughter by a bunch of Western studios that think that it's a good selling point for people to see these characters being in such grotesque looking ways. And it's even more egregious when it's an established game, whether if it's a sequel or even a remake or a reboot. Time and time again we're seeing it happen, and a lot of people are fed up with it for good reason, and people are talking about it even now and even in the future for good reason, because it's a constant attack on female characters, and a lot of people know it. A lot of people are afraid to even say anything about it for whatever reason, and there's a lot of people who are going to deny it and going to go to bat for these companies, fight on the hill until there's nothing left of them, because they feel the need to defend something that is obviously going on when it comes down to these female characters. And I've said it before, I'm going to keep talking about it, but this time I'm going to talk about it with my good friend Jim Pachi.
Thanks for having me on, and I'm looking forward to talking about this subject because it's actually been pissing me off quite a bit, considering that it's unneeded, it's pandering. We're dealing with all it's basically all for this ESG bullshit, and we all know it. Everyone knows that what it is. Everyone knows that it's part of an agenda, and you have so many people doing mental gymnastics because they don't want to accept what's really going on. Because, so I'm glad we're finally talking about this subject. We've been wanting to do this video for a while, so thanks for having me.
So recently, well actually just recently, Feminist Frequency, which is a site ran by Anita Sarkeesian, you may have heard of her. She is one of the people who is very instrumental in what's been going on in gaming as far as the decline in gaming, or rather the decline in female characters in gaming. And the site has been around for apparently 15 years, I guess, so it was around since 2009. How it's been going on for that long, I don't know. And her excuse is that she's exhausted, and I guess maybe because playing a victim and spreading third wave feminist propaganda for 15 years is very tiring on her. Anyway, it will not be missed, and hopefully this will maybe wake a few people up. I don't know. I doubt it, because you need a lot of convincing for people to actually understand what's going on and actually use their brains. But people like Anita Sarkeesian and her stooges and whoever else you want to name are very instrumental in what's been going on in gaming with female characters, especially with how they look. And unless you're blind, you should know what I'm talking about. But of course, even when you explain these things and actually show evidence of this, there's a lot of people who will claim that you're making things up, you're mad, you're an incel, you want to jerk off the characters, you want to watch porn or some whatever bullshit, and they can never dispute what you're saying. We're here now. You have so many examples. You have Tanya in Mortal Kombat 1, who looks awful, obviously. You already have the character in the Fable reboot. You also have Mary Jane's new design. I mean, all these people are having these facelifts that are not very appealing whatsoever.
Yep, and I could basically agree with what you're saying there. And as far as Anita goes, nothing's more tiring than mental gymnastics. It's probably the most tiring thing you can do, Having to lie to yourself to convince other people of your lies is pretty funny, It's pretty taxing, I'm sure. So basically, I'm convinced that the reason why they keep doing this with female characters is basically because they want to program people, They're trying to program people to think a certain way. And what they want to do is, in my opinion, what media is trying to do and what these feminists and all these woke people are trying to do is just constantly shove this in your face. If it fails, it doesn't matter. It's tied to a big name brand like Mortal Kombat, Spider-Man, or whatever. And kids are growing up seeing this normalized. So it doesn't matter if it's good or bad to them, if it makes money or causes them to lose money, as long as they put that message out there and people see it. And it, basically like what I said before, programs young people to grow up with that being the normal thing. And I just find it kind of funny that they would take, for example, Tanya's face actor, Sydney Cross, who actually looks very attractive. She looks pretty good.
Most of these face models usually actually look good, or if they don't look like like a supermodel or whatever, they clearly look far superior than the actual game model somehow.
Mm-hmm. Like Sydney Cross is a model, and granted, she's not, like, in my opinion, not the most attractive woman in the world by what I like, but she's not ugly. She looks fairly good, and what they did to her in the game, you just look at her face and how they warped, like, they literally take these actors and warp their faces to purposely be unattractive and fit whatever agenda they have for whatever game they're making, whether it be making them more masculine or saying this is a quote-unquote more accurate representation if you understand what I'm getting at with Tanya, which I find horrible. Like, that's about as bad as it gets with how these people think.
Well, you know what? Let's not beat around the bush. What they mean is, what they try to go around and say is that, this is an accurate representation of a black woman.
Yes.
And we're from New York. Wherever you're from, I'm sure you've seen black women that look far superior than this design of Tanya.
I've dated black women that look better. I see black women every day in the gym that look better, in the streets.
Yep.
When I go out to get something to eat. Anytime I go outside, I generally see black women that are attractive. So some people try to twist the issue into saying that, it's people are mad because she looks more black now, which is false, because again, that's implying that the people who are saying that are implying that the only accurate portrayal of a black woman is an ugly one, which is, in my opinion, I find that fucked up.
And that's the real issue of all this, is that these developers, and it's usually from the Western developers, you see a game like Death Stranding by Hideo Kojima and his team, mm-hmm. The female characters look pretty accurate to their to the face models, and they don't look ugly.
Yeah.
You can say, maybe there's some old women in the game or whatever it may be.
But they're actually old women that are meant to look old because it's part of the story, and the actors themselves are old.
Yes. And even the same thing with Capcom with Resident Evil or Devil May Cry. So you're seeing these developers actually from the East, even they use basically the same technology, but are actually putting out different results compared to the Western developers.
But they lie. They say, it's a technical limitation, or because of technology they can make them more realistic, or blah blah blah. But really, they're literally taking actors and models and literally warping their faces to be uglier. Meanwhile, the East doesn't have to do this.
And I think a lot of people take issue when people bring that up, like, well, this isn't a problem in the East, but it's a problem in the West. And then they try to make excuses where it's like, well, it's like stylized or something else, or yeah, you know, the way the culture is different, and you know, you're comparing two different games and this, that, and the third.
But we all know that's horseshit.
Yeah, it's mental gymnastics. Is what it is.
In reality, we know what it is. Look, some like Spider-Man 2, for example, because I find it actually funny, is that they gave Mary Jane a more feminine aesthetic somewhat, in that they let her hair down.
That's not really about it.
They made the hair more red, you know, like a deeper red.
Yeah.
She's not dressed as like...
From what we've seen so far.
From what we've seen so far, she doesn't look like she's trying to dress like the third wave feminist reporter. It seems a little more like grounded. However, that's as far as it goes, because we saw what they did to her freaking face. Her face was already a potato in Spider-Man PS4, and now like it went from a potato to like a freaking Sputnik Russian potato, or whatever you want to call it. It's a freaking block.
Her face looks like she can carve stone.
Like it's carved out of stone?
Yeah, I think even with Aloy and Horizon.
Yeah, like they enhanced the jaw, because remember that one of the most masculine features that a human can have is like a strong jaw. So for some reason, these female characters, they have way stronger jaws than their face models. I'm willing to bet that if we looked at Mary Jane's face actress for Spider-Man 2, we would see that her jaw is nowhere near as blocky as it's portrayed in the game.
Oh, I've seen them. I actually have them. So, you know, it'll be on the screen. Don't worry. For people to see, so they can make excuses. I mean, they already are. A lot of these people usually do, because it ultimately comes down to they got to play the game no matter what. They got to convince everyone else that the game is good, that you should buy it too. And if you're going to complain, you shouldn't complain, or you have all these issues if you complain because, you know, you're an incel, you want to jerk off to these characters.
Well, I hate that argument. Like, oh, you're an incel, you're whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, really, like, I feel like people really have to really need to think deeply about what makes a man and a woman attractive to the opposite sex. Yes, there's nuance. Everybody has their own taste or whatever. But men and women, their attractiveness are based on different criteria. It's generally based on different criteria. You get what I'm saying? And people try to say like, it doesn't matter or whatever, or you shouldn't care or whatever. You just want to jerk off to the characters, blah, blah, blah. I like Superman. Superman's a great character. Superman has a masculine chest, a square jaw, broad shoulders. I don't find Superman attractive, but he's an idealized person. When you watch fiction, unless it's totally grounded in reality, like totally grounded, that it's supposed to reflect, like if you're playing a game, like they would make a Law and Order game, they're allowed to, I'm okay with them not being idealized. They were playing Law and Order, the game.
It would make sense, especially if you know what the characters look like in the shows, so that makes sense.
You're playing a game about high fantasy, or like even something like Spider-Man is fantasy.
Or even like I mean, I guess you can say Fable.
Of course, it's called Fable.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, it's okay for the characters to be idealized. That's what it comes down to. Idealized female form, idealized male form. And all this stuff that they're perpetuating in society to try to tell us, well, no, this is not idealized. What we tell you is going to be the thing that you like is not congruent with reality. That's why a lot of times you see these things fail. They fall on their face. Which brings me to my second point that I wanted to mention with the whole like Spider-Man thing is, with the whole Spider-Man thing before. People just want to play Spider-Man 2, and as much as people want to say touch grass, half the people playing that game live online. They don't want to see criticism because they like Spider-Man. So they're just like, basically what I'm trying to say is that because they like the brand of Spider-Man, it has to be good no matter what because they're hyped for the game, like as you said before. Mm-hmm. So even if the criticism is valid, they will tell themselves anything they can to deflect criticism. Like one game that I really enjoy, you know, I have a lot of videos on my channel, is Arkham Knight. I love that game. The boss battles are not good. And I find, as an example of like where people will pretend like, oh no, the game's perfect, blah, blah, blah. It's not perfect. I like it, but I can admit the flaws. Spider-Man 2 might be a fun game. It might have great combat. It has Venom in it. I kind of like how the symbiote suit looks. I'm sure it'll be a fun game, but it should also be criticized on the things that
it gets wrong.
That it gets wrong. And making women look like blockhead potatoes, or whatever you want to look like, Roblox characters.
Yeah, I mean, it's valid criticism.
Or Minecraft characters. And it's Mary Jane, who's always, in the comics, has always generally always been an attractive model, like literally a female model, attractive girl, you know, a curvy, voluptuous body. That's how she's always been portrayed. So it doesn't, in my opinion, and in many other people's opinions, it doesn't matter if it hurts feminist feelings that she's drawn like that or modeled like that. That's how her character should be portrayed. Same thing with Chun-Li. Chun-Li gotta have the thick thighs. She gotta have, you know, the attires, you know, that accentuate her legs. Cammy has her classic attire. Deal with it. Suck it up. Deal with it. You know, I feel that a lot of people, they feel like, oh, I can't live up to this. They feel like it's like what's the word?
Unwritten rule?
Unrealistic beauty standard. But the point is that it's idealized. The same way that that you wouldn't tell another man you have to look like Superman or you have to look like freaking Batman or Goku or whatever. You wouldn't tell a female that she has to look that way, but accept that it's idealized.
And I also want to touch up on a point that you made about that people will buy Spider-Man because it's Spider-Man, right? Because it has to do with the brand. The brand is selling, just like Mortal Kombat. So people can talk about Tanya or whatever the next character that gets thrown to the slaughter from NetherRealm Studios. Whichever one, people will complain about it, but it doesn't mean that the game won't sell. And it doesn't mean that people who have a very large following, and I'm not talking about myself, but people who have a very large following and they buy the game, however they buy it, whether if it's through Super Chat or whatever the fuck it may be, like monetization money, whatever it is, they get the game and they're streaming it, they're talking about it, they're reviewing the game, and they don't have really anything flattering to say about the game. That's fine, because it's the same thing with a review, with a game journalist or whoever the fuck, where they'll review a game and they end up not liking it, but then another website will say a completely different thing. They end up saying that they like it, which is fine. Hearing both sides is fine. So when people say things like, oh, if you didn't like it, then you shouldn't be talking about it. It's like, no, that's how people will know whether or not they should buy it or not. Because then if I don't like censorship or what they're doing to female characters, and someone's telling me this, then
but it's more of the same.
Yeah, then that's the type of shit that I want to know. Where someone who is clearly a corporate slave who's going to buy the game no matter what and try to tell other people that you can't talk about this game, you can't, this is, a non-issue and all this other shit. They're not going to tell me the truth. They're not going to tell me what I want to know about the game. Mm-hmm. Because the same people who will tell you that, yeah, this game is woke, this game has this, that, or whatever, like censorship and all that shit, they as well are also going to mention the gameplay, the graphics, glitches, frame rate, music, the sound design, all that, especially if it's a review. Now, if someone's just making a rant video, explain what they don't like, then obviously they're not going to mention the things they liked.
Well, I think, like, to that point, like, somebody has to, unless you just buy everything, right? Because I would rather, like, one YouTuber or, like, some reviewer that's anti-woke buy the game and confirm it's woke and confirm that it's glitchy or buggy or whatever. That's not a pundit. Because even before all the woke shit, there were a lot of YouTubers that were masking glitches and shit and masking the games being broken because they wanted to get those review copies or whatever.
Even now, Cyberpunk is a good example of that.
So when it comes to those things, like, hey, honestly, like, sure, I don't like it either. I would love to say, like, just don't support them because I don't want them to get any freaking money. I hope all that shit fails because inherently, me personally, I believe it's evil. I believe trying to condition people for this crazy ass shit is evil, in my opinion. You're trying to manipulate people into believing freaking straight up lies. But I'm not gonna get into that because, like, that's a whole nother subject. But the main thing is that you can't go by just what you see because they constantly do bait and switches. Like, for example, I didn't personally see it. However, the Barbie movie that came out recently, it had like this trailer, like you can bring your kids to see the movie, you could bring your family to see the movie or whatever, blah blah blah. And from some of the scenes I've seen on YouTube, there's like literally it's a vapid feminist movie that you would not know just going by the trailers. They bait and switch you. So somebody that does a review can say, hey, this movie is not what you think. Somebody who might not even care about it, they can at least tell you something that they're trying to hide from you. They're telling you that the movie has all this crazy shit in it that maybe your daughter or wife or kids or whoever, you probably don't want that infiltrating their mind. I even heard a thing where somebody was saying that their daughter saw the movie and that she asked her dad if like, does everyone really hate women? Like, that's crazy.
It is crazy.
But I know this is not about movies, but that's an example of like how if you just go by watching a trailer, you're not gonna know that this is like that the true content is not what you think. And then once you go and give them your money, now you're bringing your family to see this movie that's basically propaganda.
Yep. So same thing applies to the games. Like no one's talking about what's going on that people are interested in hearing, especially when it's something that's been happening as far as like the female characters, all this woke shit, politically correct shit, whatever you want to call it. People care about it. They want to know. So if there's people talking about it, then that's a good thing. And trying to silence people because for whatever reason it hurts your feelings that someone's talking negatively about something you're interested in, too fucking bad.
Yeah. So yeah, back to Mortal Kombat. Here's another thing that people they like seldom actually like really think about. People play Mortal Kombat because yeah, Mortal Kombat's more of like a traditional, like I guess in a way Mortal Kombat 3, like Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, it had depth with the, I mean it was kind of broken because you know whatever, it was those older games are kind of broken, but they had like depth to the mechanics. But the real reason why people play Mortal Kombat is the violence and gore. Right? Like I'm pretty sure you would agree with that.
Yeah, of course. That's what it's sold on, pretty much.
What people watch, the main thing that's, especially now with Mortal Kombat X and 11, and even 9 to a degree, is that the violence has never been more realistic and gory. I would say it's at the peak of what gore could look like in video games. So, because it fills that specific niche of this extreme violence and gore that you can only get from Mortal Kombat. Other games have gore, but not like none of those games compare to Mortal Kombat.
Yeah,
especially the recent ones.
It's on a whole nother level. So when you think about it, they're like at the top.
Yeah, it's especially now with 11 and X, it's like it's probably the most realistic gore. I mean, not realistic because it's like some fantasy shit happening, but you know, like as far as like flesh tearing.
Yeah, like intense.
It's
gore.
graphic.
Yeah.
So people know that the only way they're gonna fill that niche is if they play that Mortal Kombat game that comes out, which means that no matter what people say or criticize about the game, they're gonna tell themselves whatever they need to play their bloody game, because two things sell. People say, sex doesn't sell. It's violence and sex. Last of Us 2, terrible. Honestly, that game has story problems, all this shit with all these problems with it. But one thing that it has is extreme violence and gore. What do people say that are There are people that they'll talk about the game and say, "Oh, that shit was cool. All the kills, the brutal kills, or whatever." Yeah, that's cool and all, right? You like the violence. Violence and sex always sells. Whenever there's a lack of sex, what they do, they throw in crazy violence. Whenever there's with Japanese games, they're a little bit less violent because Japan's more strict on the violence, but what they have more sex appeal with the females. It's
like Street Fighter.
Yeah, like Street Fighter. So one of the things that I find aggravating, I don't know if you find it aggravating, Remnant, is that people will say, "Oh well," like you said before, "Oh, you just want to jerk off to these characters, sexy. You just want to see, you just want to watch porn. You just want to do this." Yeah, and you just want to watch people be brutally murdered. You see how stupid that mentality is?
It's like,
once you apply thought to it, like even applying basic logic, where people want to take a high horse and be like, "Oh, I'm not a pervert like you." Yeah, I guess you're just a psychopath because you want to see people ripped apart.
Yeah, it's just people will just use cheap tactics to try to disprove what you're saying while not debunking anything. So they can just throw buzzwords like, you want to jerk off to this character, you're an incel, you need to touch grass, go outside.
People say touch.
There's other things, have more time and do different things in your life and all sort of shit.
People say touch grass, and those are the same people that are on Twitter all day. They're online all day. Like, if you're on Twitter or on YouTube in a comment section, you shouldn't even bother saying touch grass, because like you're on the internet just like everyone else. You cannot confirm. The same way I can probably not confirm how much time you spend online unless I'm looking at some kind of analytics. You cannot confirm how much time the person you're saying that to is online as well. Like, people say the stupidest asinine shit I've ever heard.
As if it proves anything.
As if it proves anything, just to make themselves feel better, to throw out some kind of buzzword. So again, they talk about like, oh, you just want to beat up to the character. And honestly, and being frank, if somebody wants to look at sexy females in a comic book or in a game or whatever, there's nothing wrong with that. There's actually zero wrong with that.
And that's true, but also I want to point out how hypocritical it is. I'm going to just speak specifically about gaming, where the men could be sexualized, but the women can't.
Yeah.
Funny how that works. But
men
also,
like Abby.
Yes, men like men like Abby. But also, notice back to the Mary Jane part. She looks older. She has more of a very square jaw, but
She got the Habsburg jaw.
Yeah.
Anybody who doesn't know what that is, look that up. She got female. The modern trend is giving female characters the Habsburg jaw.
But notice that on the remastered Spider-Man 1, what did they do to Peter Parker's face?
They made him look younger. They did a cheap ass Tom Holland.
Yep. But what they do to Mary Jane?
Made her look like Grandma. Grandma Mary.
She wasn't changed in that remaster.
Yeah, she could be more feminine. She's just Grandma now and got the Habsburg jaw.
Peter can look like he's in his early 20s. It looks like he's maybe 21 years old, where Mary Jane now looks like she's in her mid-30s somehow.
Yeah, even though they're both like around the 30s.
And roughly around the same age. So
30s.
Yeah. So
and to be frank, this is neither here nor there. The old Peter's face was better, in my opinion.
yeah, it was. Now it looks kind of like weird and jarring, and it's just a cheap Tom Holland knockoff. Clearly that's what they were trying to do. That's what they were trying to emulate, and no excuse can be made about it, because why wasn't any of the other characters changed, and why are you even changing it to begin with? You modeled this person's face for a reason. What is the issue? Why is the need to change his face?
It was a weird change, and I really think that change was just solely to give him like a more like youthful Tom Holland look.
Yeah, that's all it was.
That's all it really comes down to, in my opinion.
So even with the evidence of images, videos, whatever it may be, to prove what's clearly going on, not just from me, but a whole number of other people, whether if they're a smaller channel, a bigger channel, whether it's YouTube, Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it now, wherever it is, people are showing proof. And funny thing is, a lot of people have a very hard time trying to disprove what's being shown, what's being done.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, hey, I can't say anything, so I'm just gonna call you names and try to shame you for not wanting to accept everything no matter what. That's what everyone wants you to do. Accept everything no matter what. No matter what they do, just accept it, eat it,
or otherwise be shamed into oblivion because somehow it's wrong to want something aesthetically appealing to look at in a game where you're spending money, where you're playing as this character for a whole number of hours. This is not like a movie where you're there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, or whatever. You're there for like usually over 5 hours, over 10 hours, over 20 hours, and you're pretty much going to play as this character that looks horrendous. There's no way around it. Yeah. Even though the face model looks far superior, but of course they had to go in there and fuck it up.
Hell, I made an image of Tanya, where I just used the same face model. I didn't even alter the face model. I just gave her the hair from Mortal Kombat Deception and the white eyes. And it's funny how the face model works perfectly fine and looks almost nothing like the in-game model for Tanya in MK1.
Yeah, so see how you're able to pretty much fix it. Just like people on the internet, they were able to fix the character for the Fable reboot. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did.
So people are able to fix these characters that are not even the game developers themselves.
And you can kind of see the things that they commonly do. Like, the nasal labial fold, which is like the between the nose and mouth, that like line that comes down, they make it extra deep, right? This is what they usually do. They really deepen that line so that it gives them this like, it kind of ages the characters almost, because you have that deep line in that fold, and then what they'll do is they'll increase the size of the jaw of the character, or they'll kind of like furrow their brow to make it look more like masculine. Like they literally do this.
That kind of reminds me of the main character for that game Returnal.
Yes.
And there's other examples of it. They even did it with Chloe in Uncharted, where if you see how she looked like in Uncharted 2 and 3, and then you see Lost Legacy, she looks completely different. And And Nadine.
Nadine looked better in Uncharted 4.
And even then, she didn't look that great.
But she looked better.
Yeah, she did.
She didn't look great, but
and
she looked better.
Lost Legacy, it's like she got the Abby.
Yeah.
They did Abby before Abby.
And you know what? Funny thing about Uncharted Lost Legacy, what they did with what's her name? I can't. Chloe. What they did with Chloe was, because Chloe is mixed. She's mixed. She's, I believe, Indian, right? Like Indian and European. Mm-hmm. And in the games before, she kind of looked like a blend of both. But in Uncharted Lost Legacy, they really wanted to emphasize her like her ethnic features, And like, of course, you would wonder why would they alter her face so much to lean more one side when she was a lot more balanced before, between like what her mixed race was.
Yep, that's.
And basically, it's because and like, to clarify, it's because of ESG. It's because they want to get those woke points, those brownie points. Like, look, we put a person of color in the game. Not that there's anything wrong with putting a person of color in the game, but when this character was mixed, but all of a sudden she just looks like fully Indian, then clearly they was a purposeful choice in the art direction to do so.
And people fail to put two and two together. Somehow it's a conspiracy, or we're complaining about the wrong things, but way the dumb ones, the people who are defending this bullshit, are somehow the highly intelligent people who should be taken seriously, but are constantly, displaying high levels of mental gymnastics. Oh, yeah. Anytime they try to defend bullshit like this.
Or like the Superman show. That show is unsavable. Look what they did to Lois in that show.
Yeah, that's another example.
Look at Lois. Why is she... First off, she doesn't look anything like Lois. Then she's written like an idiot. For anybody who's wondering, there's like a scene where she basically throws herself off of a building because Clark Kent didn't tell her that he was Superman. Almost like it's something wrong with protecting your secret that could cause other people to get harmed.
Confused morality.
And I find it funny. This is like the funniest part. The character is mainly popular for fan art where they highly sexualize the character, which is like the ultimate irony or the coincidence or whatever you want to call it of it all. That all these people are against this stuff. They make this woke ass version of Lois, and people are obsessing over the character because of highly sexualized fan art. So even the fans that are pretending to like that show are highly sexualizing the character, while in the show she looks like a teenage boy basically.
Yep, and another character ruined.
Yeah.
So.
But but it's also like both things. It's like not only is the character ruined, and then people are saying, "Oh, get over it." This, the basically the woke crowd like everything, no matter what. No matter what they do to a series you like it anyway, even if it's unrecognizable. But those are the same people going crazy for sexualized fan art.
Yeah.
But they're praising her new design that's ironically less feminine. I find it hilarious.
It is. It's like, it's crazy.
So
how that works. So, but.
And I obviously that's different from game. That's not strictly like talking about gaming, but it's the same mentality.
Yeah, because the same thing applies. You can even
look at Tanya fan art. If you look at MK1 Tanya fan art that exists already before the game came out, they give her thicker legs, wider hips. They'll keep the attire but make her face look more attractive, right?
Yeah.
Like they'll do all these things because the people that are vouching for this deep down. What people really want is undeniable. And no matter what they say with their mouth, it doesn't match what they actually think.
And ultimately, it just comes down to them virtue signaling to seem like the good guys online because they desperately care about what people think about them, because some of these people have a large following or try to make a large following online, and in real life, that's not the case. So they got to seem like the good person online, who is very virtuous and has high morals and shit like that. But then, whenever, God forbid, someone speaks out against the bullshit that's going on with these characters,
I bet you if you check their phone, you'll find out what they really like, what they're really into.
Yep.
I bet you would. I bet you if you type search them tags in their browser, and you'll find out what they're really into.
Yep. Then that's how it usually goes. Same thing with the journalists. Some of them end up being weirdos, getting arrested and shit.
Yeah.
So.
And like in the end of the day, like when it comes when we're going back to the subject of like strictly gaming, like why would you want to play a game where you don't have idealized characters? Imagine instead of like Batman being like this fit, muscular martial artist, he's portrayed as a fat middle-aged bald man with glasses. That's Bruce Wayne. And with the suit, he's like in the bat suit, this like 300-pound guy doing these things.
Yeah, no one would want to.
No one want to buy it.
Buy it. Yeah.
People love Kratos. If they made Kratos if they made Kratos built like Thor, people wouldn't want to buy that game.
They wouldn't.
Why is that?
They'll lie online like they would, but the reality is that they wouldn't want to buy it.
Because when you go into fiction, and especially fantasy and superheroes, it's about idealized characters. You want it. They're people that maybe you can't live up to, but that's the point. You can look at them as like role models or characters that you can strive to be like, or they don't have to reflect the grim reality of life.
Yeah, they don't. Which is why escapism is rooted within gaming and other forms of entertainment, because it's an escape from the grim reality that is life.
Exactly.
Which is why we like to see, heroic looking men, or the same with women, feminine females. Because a female who is feminine, she can also have heroism about her.
Yeah, true.
She doesn't have to look like a man or act like a man.
Wonder Woman never had that problem.
Never had that problem.
Even though, and it's funny because Wonder Woman was created as a somewhat like a feminist character, but she still was, distinctly female, distinctly feminine, and embody those traits. And she also had warmth. That's one thing about Wonder Woman is that she also displays warmth toward people that she saves, and toward people. She doesn't act like she doesn't act like that artificial meme, or what do you want to call it, like not meme, caricature of what a masculine female is, right? Like she just was a powerful character that embodied warmth and good ideas and doing the right thing,
And that's what people liked about the character for years. Mm-hmm. So Wonder Woman didn't have a problem inspiring other people, or getting people interested into the character, like in Lara Croft and a whole bunch of other characters. Storm from X-Men. A bunch of other characters that people were able to gravitate to without it having to have some type of feminist message, or the character clearly trying to combat with the male characters, or degrade the male characters, or just not act feminine whatsoever. It's like this constant rejection of femininity, where it's not a very good selling point, and because a lot of people are not for it, and there's people who will just blatantly lie about it as if it's like a normal thing, or something that people want. Because they need
to play the gory game.
Yeah,
they need to play the Spider-Man game. They need to play the new survival horror game. So basically, their need to play the game supersedes them actually like thinking and using their heads and admitting that they don't really like these things. They most people they'll make excuses for anything, and they'll accept these dumbed down, ugly, watered down females. Woke agendas, all this stuff, because they need to play the new Spider-Man game, they need to play the new Mortal Kombat game, they need to play the new whatever XX and the third game.
Dead Space remake, where you're seeing Nicole clearly getting a face change. She looks fucking like Renee Young. If you're a wrestling fan, you know who that is. It's looking like a completely different person. Same thing with Isaac. They even did that with him.
Well,
where they changed these characters' faces, they race swap characters, and then people want to act like it's not a big deal. And it's like, if it's not a big deal,
then why was it changed?
Exactly. Why was it a change in the first place? They
Exactly.
can't just snap their fingers and make this change. They actually have to. It takes time to actually do this.
Yeah, it takes time, and a lot of design work goes in. So it's a collective decision. Like, all right, let's make this character black. Why? Because they need to add that black character. Make this female ugly. Why? Because we need to represent, quote unquote, the female gamer base. And that's also messed up because it's implying that most of the people playing the females playing the game are ugly because apparently they're supposed to relate to them
somehow. But it's like, all
so
it is
it's an insult. And
yeah.
And in addition of being an insult, like, remember, look what they did to Luis in Resident Evil 4. They take this guy who's this charismatic, brash, his, Latin character, and they take away the lines because they're considered offensive, so he loses his personality.
Yeah, and none of this has to do with, like, whether or not if he has more on-screen time in the game.
Yeah.
It's not about that. It's about his personality, certain lines that were very
memorable.
They were memorable.
memorable.
How many times do you hear people say that shit?
Yeah, and remember that if a character, all right, let's say you're against male characters talking like that, if you consider it sexist or whatever, blah, 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 it adds even though I don't agree with that, it adds an additional layer to his character. He's like this guy who speaks in that way. It gives him a little bit more of something than just generic Latin hero.
So we pretty much know what they're trying to do with these characters. I think if you've been living under a rock, it's time to come out and realize what they're doing to these characters, and specifically with the female characters, because it's undeniable. It's like you're just seeing it's like year after year, it's like getting worse, and you're seeing a constant pattern on full display here, and no amount of mental gymnastics is gonna change what people can see. We can see the changes. We can see what they're doing.
Yes.
You can just look up the models themselves, just with Tanya alone, which is recent. People even looked up the model for the Fable game, and not a supermodel or anything like that, but she's far superior looking than whatever the fuck they did with the character in Fable. So we see what they're doing. We know what's going on, and we know why. Majority of it is ESG, and a lot of it also is this feminist bullshit. This gotta make the female mind masculine, and then make the men feminine.
Yes. Why? Because when you have a society of bitches, you can control all of them.
And remember that, as harsh as all that may sound, it all comes down to all these companies, they're playing ball because they want that ESG investment money. That's what they care about. They don't care about you. They don't care about, representing anybody. They don't actually care. And if they did, they wouldn't be pulling this kind of shit. Because years ago, when the criteria of society was different, they were happy to play ball with that. So
shit, you can look at some of the old documentaries from some of these games and see, like God of War.
Oh yeah, remember I showed you Cory Barlog? Yep. Totally different guy.
If you watch that, which God of War was it?
God of War 2. Watch the making of God of War 2 and listen to Cory Barlog talking. You'll understand what that guy really thinks and how his real personality.
Yep.
Because the interviews he does now, they're just pandering.
Yeah, it's a lie. Because a lot of them, they try to make it seem like when they originally made the game, they were fucking like 10 years old and some shit, and now they're like in their 40s and like, oh, I'm matured now. It's like, it's a lie.
They go with the flow of society because they're trying to maximize profits. And right now, society is saying that some guys at BlackRock are going to give you money if you give into this woke stuff. So they want that money. That's what they're going to do. Whether you like it or not, this is undeniable. You can look at the companies that they're invested in. It's public information.
It's not a secret. You can
listen to Larry.
You
can listen to Larry Fink. I'm pretty sure it's Larry Fink.
Yeah.
You can listen to him talk about it, and he's even directly just outwardly said it. But the thing is, people didn't know who the hell it was. People don't know who is behind all of that. And you can watch him, and it's not a conspiracy. The guy literally says it. We're investing money in people that are playing ball with
this inclusivity trend.
So all the people, you want to say educate yourself, do some research. Maybe you should be the ones doing that because
It's not a conspiracy. The CEO of BlackRock is saying we're investing money based on this. It's not a conspiracy. It's not made up. It's not tinfoil hat time. It's literally a thing that the CEO said, and it's constantly happening, and it has been confirmed by all these companies saying that they're playing ball with it.
And which is why you're seeing all this happening with these female characters. So, to close this out, this shit is getting exhausting, and it's not a secret, and it's not no incel shit or whatever excuse people want to make. It's obvious, it's deliberate, and maybe these people who are trying to really hard to defend it need to wake up and see what's going on, because it is a problem, because it not only reflects the design of the character, but also the personality of the character and the writing and the story and everything that's involved with it.
And hey, look, I love Spider-Man. I like Mortal Kombat. I liked all those things too, and I enjoyed them as well. But the thing is that at a certain point, you have to say, hey, is me having to play this game, is that more important to me than what I actually believe? And to the people out there that don't think like that, what I have to say to you is like what you like, be unapologetic about it. If you like sexy women in games, nothing wrong with that.
Don't apologize for what you like.
If you like, don't apologize.
Because usually it's never good enough for these people anyway. So.
Yeah, don't apologize. If you like it, you like it. And hey, if you genuinely like the woke shit, then fine. But if you only like it because you need to justify you paying for the next new thing, then you should really reevaluate yourself, in my opinion.
So at this point, it's pretty obvious what's going on. You can look up the public information yourself about ESG. You can look up whatever Anita Sarkeesian was spewing however many years ago and see how that applies to a lot of these games. You can see the video where Neil Druckmann himself presents an award to Anita Sarkeesian. He has a speech. He even had a fucking what was it, like a PowerPoint presentation or whatever the fuck about Last of Us, where Anita Sarkeesian inspired him, and I'm sure he's not the only one. Maybe he's the only one who spoke publicly about it, but if you look around, you can see that a lot of what's been going on in society has been affecting not just, movies, comics, and all that other shit, also gaming. You're seeing with the characters, it's like day after day, month after month, it's like a new character is being destroyed, and people are speaking up about it for good reason.
I remember that despite what Remnant said about Neil Druckmann, the reason why people like The Last of Us 2, The Last of Us 1, it had a good story. It did have a good story, but it's because they want to kill the zombies. They want the brutal, bloody, choke people, shoot people combat. And that's the nitty-gritty of it at the end of the day. And
people should just stop lying to yourselves.
Stop lying.
Just admit what it is, why you like it, why other people like it.
The story was good, but people really liked the bloody, gory gameplay. And if it didn't have that, it would not be reviewed as well. Because again, no matter what people say, they say, oh, sex doesn't always sell. Yeah, violence also sells. Have one or the other.
Just as much as the sex sells.
Yes, have both. And there's nothing wrong with either one. But that's what it is.
That's what it boils down to.
So
that's the gist of what we're trying to say in this whole video, podcast, whatever the fuck you want to call it. So hopefully people got the gist of what we were saying.
And remember, they don't care about your activism. They just want that ESG money. Because damn sure all those brokey fans that do the retweets for all this woke stuff, they ain't buying those games.
They're not. Why do you think something like Saints Row Reboot didn't sell?
Yeah.
Forspoken. Forgot about that? Forspoken? Anyone?
Forgotten.
Yeah, forgotten. For shame. And it really is a shame what's been going on with these female characters. And the more people speak up about it, the better. So, and that's what I plan on keep on doing. Speaking up about it because I care. And that's what it is. And I'm not going to support the bullshit that goes on. So, a lot of people should also do that as well. But anyway, do a little outro.
Well, yeah, that's basically it. I mean,
That's really basically all I had to say. I could say more, but we'll just leave it at that. If you guys are interested in Arkham Combat and animation, you could check out my channel. If not, that's fine too. But if you do, thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah.
So that's going to be it for us, the dynamic duo. And we'll catch you guys later. And play some Dead or Alive. Get some people mad or something. I don't know. Play some Street Fighter. Use Cammy's classic outfit.
Yeah, use a classic outfit online.
Get some people mad. I don't know if it has a photo mode. Get in there, get in that photo mode one time and get some good pictures and be unapologetically who you are and screw the weirdos who, at the end of the day, don't matter. They're all NPCs anyway.